According to the International Organization for Migration, diaspora remittances to Africa hit $52.9 billion in 2024. This was more than half of the $94 billion the continent received in foreign direct investments during the year. However, in countries like Nigeria, diaspora remittances outpaced FDI, as Nigeria recorded about $21 billion in diaspora remittances, but less than $1 billion in FDI. Now the question remains, how can we convert these remittances to FDI? This makes up the bulk of our show this morning. Welcome to Economy and Market, where we give you a comprehensive breakdown of markets and economic activities. I'm your host, David Olujimi. This morning, we zero in on a quiet but powerful force, economic force, which is diaspora remittances. In 2024 alone, Africans living abroad sent home a staggering $52.9 billion, and that's according to the International Organization for Migration. That figure is more than half of the $94 billion received in FDI. And of this $94 billion, we have figures like the $30 billion FDI commitment to Egypt from the United Arab Emirates for the development of a new coastal city. Essentially, when you remove that figure out, you already have $64 billion left. And of this figure, we already show that remittances make up, they've been a bulk of whatever FDIs we receive in the continent. Nowhere is this dynamic more striking than in Nigeria, where diaspora remittances hit $21 billion, highest in 5 years. Meanwhile, FDI was just under $1 billion in the same 2024. In other words, everyday Nigerians abroad are doing more to keep the engine running than multinational investors. But here's where the question forms the core of our show. How do we move diaspora money from survival to strategy? From household support to infrastructure and enterprise? This and many more will make up the bulk of discussions that will be happening during the Africa Diaspora Investment Symposium 2025 that will be holding in Washington, D.C. this month from May 28th to May 30th. The symposium, which will be hosted in the George Washington University, is tagged Beyond Remittances. And on the show this morning, we have Almaz Negash, the CEO of the Africa Diaspora Network, who will be breaking down some of the figures, who will explain to us some of the goal of this symposium to us. Welcome to the show, Almaz.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so let's get started right away. Last year, Nigeria issued a domestic USD bond. I don't know if you are aware about that, if you were aware of that domestic USD bond.
Yes, I am. But may I ask, may I start with something even more staggering, the number that you've mentioned earlier?
Okay.
At ADN, at the African Diaspora Network, we don't really just count the sub-Saharan African remittances. Africa is one continent. It includes Egypt and every other northern part of Africa.
Yes.
That collective amount in 2024 was actually $100 billion.
Wow.
In remittances. And let me even give you another staggering number. It is that Africa gets $100 billion in remittances from the diaspora and $12 billion in US aid.
Oh my.
And as you imagine, that is a huge number difference in that the diaspora is highly committed and already investing on the continent. And then, of course, as you said, Nigeria comes number one all the time. I actually was in Lagos, had the opportunity to be there last year. And one of the discussion I had everywhere I go was about the beyond remittances and the incredible resource Nigerians are for their country. Nigerians remitted in 2022, 21 billion, as I think he mentioned, and less than 1% of that was from foreign direct investment. Oh. I think the question we're asking is not whether it's the bond or this. I think the question is, what is that we need to do as diasporans to convince our governments that we're actually the force for good, that you need to work with us? And so the diaspora, in the case of Nigeria, They're not just only giving money to their parents and to their friends and their community, which we ask them to continue to do so because it's necessary. But I also think that this incredibly untapped resource of the Nigerian skills and capacity needs to be used even differently. And that, I think I would love to discuss that in more detail as we go forward. But to the question that you brought about the 900 million.
Yes,
yes.
The domestic USD bond. So basically, the question I wanted to ask is, what lesson did this domestic USD bond teach us, let's say as Africans, about the ability to tap diaspora capital?
Well, I think that's a very good question, but there's even another question. It is very difficult to know. Our team did some research and we weren't able to know how many of the diasporans actually put money into the bond. I think what we are asking as diasporans is for our governments to be as transparent as possible, to put us at the table when there is such a discussion so that the diaspora has the opportunity to invest back home, whether in bonds or in other means in the country. So that way there is a lot more trust. And, as you may know, diasporans were not easy to trust because of the many reasons that we have gone through in life, whether it's through our governments or the governments in which we live in. I think it's very, very critical for, in this case, the Nigerian government to enable Nigerians to be a part of the conversation and the action when it comes to how they can use additional funding beyond remittances to support the development of Nigeria and other parts of the continent. So I think to the question whether Nigerian diaspora participated or whether the money was coming from multinational corporations, unfortunately, we don't have that information. If you have, I think that would be a wonderful thing, but we couldn't find any. And I think what we are asking is these kind of bonds and other investment opportunities, the diaspora must be involved because we are the ones who have vested interest in the growth of our countries and the support of our community. And I think it is a smart strategy, not only for African governments, but anybody. I don't care who is doing anything on the continent, whether you are a philanthropist, whether you are a business person trying to do business on the continent. I am begging you and I'm asking you, and I'm actually really stating it is extremely important to partner with the diaspora.
So one thing that happened last year is before the Nigerian government made mention of the domestic USD bond, one thing they were touting, the Minister of Finance was touting a diaspora bond. Essentially, I don't know if you were aware, they were touting a diaspora bond. So are you trying to, what you're trying to say now, I want to ask a question. How do you think this bond, a diaspora bond, will be structured? And do you think it's going to be appealing to Africans? Let's go beyond the context of Nigeria now, to other Africans across the continent. Let's say Egypt issues a diaspora bond. How do you think it's going to appeal to the Egyptians, or how will a diaspora Nigerian bond appeal to Nigerians?
So I'm going to say this: a bond is another tool for investing and going beyond remittances. A bond is not a remittance. A bond is something that you expect some kind of a return at some point. Diasporans are ready to do this. And I may say that Nigeria is not the only one that has done the bond, as you mentioned, Egypt, but in 1998, if I'm not mistaken, my own country, Eritrea, issued a bond, and it was the most successful bond that I have ever seen. The question is, how was the money used, and whether did it create what it was supposed to do? That is where where the rubber meets the road. We don't know. But I think that to the question that you're asking me, we want to be at the table. When a government is issuing a bond, our suggestion is that you really start to mobilize, to begin the conversation with the diaspora early on. Let's talk about Nigeria right now. If Nigerians would be interested in investing in the bonds, I would imagine that the Nigerian government would do an intentional mobilization effort throughout the world to ensure that no Nigerian is left behind from this opportunity. And then also, what are we asking from our governments? We want to know what the money is for. Is it going to build schools, infrastructure? We want to be a part of it. Healthcare centers. What are the things that are so a priority for the community? to make sure that we're putting our money where our mouth is. In the United States, it's county by county. It's not just only the federal government issuing a bond. The counties, the cities, as you know, issue bonds because it is something that they want to do for their specific community. And I think that kind of thinking, knowing where our money is going when bonds are issued, is going to be extremely, extremely helpful. And then, of course, Nigeria has a very brilliant and wonderful and committed ambassador to the diaspora engagement. She's going to be at the symposium. Okay. She will be our keynote speaker. She's going to speak about this. Yes, she's going to. Ambassador Abike will be with us, and I think we have other Nigerians who are going to be prominently speaking about this issue. So I think my plea and my request to the Nigerian people and the Nigerian government is, you've got an incredibly talented, highly educated in the United States and around the world. I'm very proud, not only of Nigerians, but all Africans. Very proud in a sense that Nigerians pretty much have the highest educational attainment in the United States, whether we like it or not. It is actually true. Everywhere we go there, it's the number issue. You know, Nigeria is the biggest country in Africa. There's also this sense of wanting and really interest in education, something that I value and I credit for all our African diaspora. In general, Africans from the diaspora in the United States are the highest educated, starting from Nigeria all the way to Eritrea and other countries. They are highly educated, highly motivated, but in number-wise, Nigeria it comes out all the way on the top. It makes sense. Why not? Because it is one of the biggest countries. And what I'm asking is that our governments need to tap into this, not as a means to an end, which is we send remittances and we're always going to be a part of it. No, as a means in itself, that we are going to be a part of our country, our continent grows. And we cannot do this alone. We are asking our governments to create an ecosystem that's conducive for us to invest.
So it leads me to my next question, basically, the question about the specific regulatory and informational barriers that African diaspora cite when investing. What are some of these barriers that you've heard people complain the most about? Is it regulatory or is it informational? You said something about the fact that you really don't know what they use the bonds for, what they use the money raised from the bonds for. That's one of the barriers. What other barriers do you think diasporans are citing or are complaining about when it comes to these bonds?
So what I said about the bonds is we were not able to know whether the diasporans, the Nigerian diaspora, invested in the bond, both the bonds. We didn't know. We couldn't find that data. What I meant is that we want to be a part of it from the beginning in order for us to know what this is going to be for. What are the barriers? I think barriers are transparency, trust.
Okay.
We need to trust where it is going. And then also, I think regulation. There are so many barriers to entry, and that makes it very difficult for the diaspora to be a part of. I wrote a long time ago a paper on incentivizing the diaspora to invest. And one way that governments can do is give us some kind of tax haven or some other opportunities where we can feel comfortable to come and invest, and are doing it already in their community. It's individual, sometimes it's collective. But I think if we want to get the most of the diaspora, the barrier, in my opinion, is transparency, accountability, and also really just knowing where our money is going. And having that communication early on, having that clarity early on, will go a long way. Those, I think, for me, these ecosystem difficulties are also another one. It's like, there's always a saying in Silicon Valley, there are no $1 billion investment opportunities in Africa. I resent that saying in a sense that why not? Why not? But they have a point. We haven't really necessarily shown them a value proposition on how this can be done. Okay. And so we are continue to be invested in millions rather than in billions. And I think the question is, we need to dream big, but we also need to be accountable for what we are dreaming. And we need to create the infrastructure that's conducive to make sure that other investors can come. Let me end by saying this. Investing on the continent is not going to come only from the diasporans. I know this, and you know, all of us know. We need our allies. We need our friends from around the world who believe in the work that Nigerians do, other countries, Ethiopians, Ghanaians, and everyone. And we have friends. We have friends that, love Lagos, not because they are from Lagos, but they love Lagos because it's a city that has vibrancy that really brings them to come and invest over and over, or even just to use the come with for their time. Whether it's training, whether it's business, whatever it is that they come for, they continue to come back and back. We need to invest in these people as well. We need to bring them into our table. Why is the diaspora important for that? We're not just the diaspora and sending remittance. We're ambassadors to our own community, the country where we come from, and the continent as a whole.
Okay, finally, just one last question, Almaz. We already see the data. Remittances outpace FDI by mile in most of the countries in Africa. Across Africa, remittances are outpacing FDI. How can what mechanisms do you think we can put in place? What are the mechanisms we can put in place to probably redirect some of these remittances into longer term direct investments? So we have, let me give you a scenario. In Nigeria, we have a thing where remittances from the US, the UK, Canada, those three countries basically are driving a real estate boom. Essentially, houses are now being priced in dollars because they have people because they are diasporans who basically are bidding for those houses. We have basically it's driving like this real estate boom. But that's on a very, I want to say, an informal scale. But how can we direct some of these remittances into longer term direct investments away from, okay, let's say the government has a role to play, but let's just not look in the direction of what government can do. What do you think can be done? What mechanisms can we put in place?
So I think for diasporans, you're right, governments can do what they do. What can we do individually? I don't know. I can give you examples after examples, but there are, for example, there's a Nigerian diaspora in Silicon Valley. He's a Silicon Valley engineer and entrepreneur here in the valley where I am in. He sold all his stock to buy an agricultural land in Nigeria to use that land to create not only just the crops, but also to create an ecosystem for investment and opportunity. So there is agri-tech, there is agriculture is a big issue, technology and innovation. Nigerians are very well known for that. You've got Flutterwave and others that have come from Nigeria and Nigerians. So there is renewable energy, there's healthcare. These are the kind of sectors that the diaspora is interested in. But the question is, how do we go about investing? I think that is where the challenge is and the opportunity as well. And I think the opportunity is we're ready. Nigerians I know are ready. They love their country regardless of what, like every other African, they come back and do the best they can to invest in that community. We're asking that if healthcare and if agriculture is of interest to the diaspora, technology is of interest to the diaspora, we are asking the governments to meet us halfway, provide the resources and the tools, and especially on the ground, really provide them the resources they need to create that the business, and also really issue when these opportunities come. Besides real estate, we want to be a part of it. We want to know early on. So one way that this can happen, I could imagine ADN getting information from Nigerian reliable resources, maybe from the Diaspora Engagement Office, to see what kind of opportunities exist for diasporans to be a part of. We should take that responsibility. We cannot tell people where to invest their money, but we can definitely give them what opportunities exist.
Okay. Finally, just give me, before we go, a brief rundown of some of the conversations that will be happening during this symposium. That's the ADs 2025. Just what are some of the...
Yes.
Okay, I would like to hear about those things. I would like to hear about those conversations.
Yes, the conversation that's going to happen going to be over and over about amplifying, showcasing the diasporans that are investing in every part of the continent, regardless of who they are and where they come from. There will be a session at the beginning of the session is on the 28th by amplifying and really showcasing and changing the narrative, because we're not necessarily known as community that invests, and Africa is a continent to invest in. And so we're going to focus on these entrepreneurs who have been investing their money, their resources, and their talents. And we're going to showcase them on Wednesday. On Thursday, we're going to have a lot of conversation on healthcare investment, on the US Africa investment opportunities, because that's critical. We do need to have that conversation. On Friday, it will be focusing a lot more on the different things that you and I have been talking about, the finance mechanism. What are the things that we want to invest in, and how can the diaspora be a part of? We're going to share so many different platforms where people can invest in. In our case, we are launching our own African Diaspora Innovation Fund, in order to raise the money and give it to our own entrepreneurs that are called the Builders of Africa's Future and the Accelerating Business Leadership and Entrepreneurship. We've been doing this for a long time. We're now asking the diaspora to step up really in a big way to support the communities that we care about so much, but they are also in need of our consistent support through mentorship, funding, and other opportunities. And then of course at the end of the day, we're going to have our own cultural celebration through music, food, and entertainment.
Okay, so thank you so much for your time, Almaz. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you so much.
TV.
Thank you.
Have a lovely morning.
You too. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right.
Bye-bye.
On Wednesday, look at some of the happenings in the economy and market. Again, thank you so much for tuning into BusinessDay TV, Economy and Markets. Have a lovely weekend.